All right, y'all, the vision has come to pass. Man, this is the first episode to Bench. I'm your host, Maurice, and with me, after God, is the founder of it all, the father we call Moses, my daddy. Daddy, I want to say thank you for sharing this moment with me. Thank you for participating. I want you to tell the people, how did it start? How did it start? And what does success look like to you, Dad? You retired at an early age, a very, very early age. And I just want you to share some light on your testimony and just let them know how life looked after, you was benched, you had to retire from the ball. So I want to say thank you, son, for letting me be on the show. And like you said, I had to retire at an early age. Um, I suffered from an injury in college, everything was planned out. Everything. I had the contract, getting ready to get the money in my hand. It was one day I had a game. I played and I suffered from a severe injury, and from that day, my whole life had changed. Of course the contract was gone. Me and your mother, we was married, we was getting ready to purchase a house that didn't fall through, and we had to go live in the projects. I'm like, man, what in the world? And so we lived in the projects. It was you and your sister. We was living on welfare. Let me go ahead and make this thing real here. We was living on welfare, and I was distraught, man, because I'm like, this injury made me trade in a life of wealth to poverty, and I was mad, man. I was mad. I was mad. I was mad at the world. I felt like I wasn't treated good. I felt like God had forsaken me, and I'm like, God, you know what I'm saying? Why this happened? We had everything planned, and God told me that was your plan. I have other plans for you. And in that moment, you know, I broke down. I was like, God, what you mean? That was the best plan right there. I was insecure. I was in my flesh. You know what I'm saying? Because I know I was in my flesh. Because first of all, who am I to question God? I'm a God-fearing man, and that's something I don't do. So I was like, God, that was a plan. In this life, where I come from, you either pick up a ball or you picking up a gun. I want to make this thing real here. Can I be real? Go ahead, there. So I'm like, God, this was it. This was it. And in that moment, I just started bawling. I just started crying. I just like, screaming and hollering. My wife like, Lord, you know, but, I had to get it out. I had to get it out. I was really distraught. I was walking around for about 2-3 months with a chip on my shoulder. I'm a mistreat my wife and, turning a turning my back on my kids. I was distraught, man. I was distraught because I didn't know what else to do. I had so much pressure on me. I'm the person that's supposed to be supplying for the family. In that moment, I learned that our plans is not God's plan. God had other plans for me, and that's where y'all came in. The other boys came in, your cousins. I raised y'all all through Christ. I was there to participate and, making sure that y'all had everything you need. And, it was tight. It was tight, but it was right. And I'm going to say that because I was not only taking care of you and your sister, I was taking care of 12 other boys. 5 of them didn't have no house to really go to. They was getting abused and stuff, so they had to come live with us in a three-bedroom apartment. So, man, when I say time, and I had to find a way to feed them. So I was like, man, God, you know what I'm saying? But I did. I was obedient. God said, no, you need to mentor these boys. You need to get them to the promised land. And that's what I did. That's what I did, at all costs. You know, um, And then the personalities, Lord. The personalities, y'all growing up, it was something, man. Y'all, man, I don't mean that I can say it now. You know, y'all were hard-headed. Y'all was some bad kids. But, you know, y'all grown. You know what I'm saying? And the only reason y'all was like that, and I can say that, because, you know, I helped y'all get to there. You know, Christ and you know, God let me assist. You know, I understand why y'all was like that, especially the other boys, you know, because they didn't have, you know, they was expressing what they was going through at home. You know, they didn't have that support at home. You know, they was going through traumas. You know, I was like, well, Lord, go ahead and get it out. You know, I had a little bit more compassion after I saw what was going in the background. So, you know, success looked at me. You know, I thought success was me playing pro ball, you know, and me just being a famous basketball player, but it was not that. True success to me looked like y'all was good. Y'all was good. Y'all made it to the promised land. You know, through God and assistance of me getting y'all to the promised land, that was successful for me. You know, somebody made it to the league. And, you know, that still makes me feel good because, you know, y'all still is out, even though y'all benched, even though, you know, a lot of y'all not, you know, holding the ball no more, you still doing something with your life. And that's what make everything that I went through so right. So I'm thankful, I'm grateful, and I love y'all. You know, that's where we at. And Daddy, we love you too. And I thank you for participating in the first episode. Until next time, this is Benched.